Everybody ready? Are we running? Oh, we got a couple minutes yet.
I messed up. That's all right. Appreciate the offering. Yeah. You know, I haven't seen it for a while. I don't know. Okay, too.
Okay.
Mayor,
We're good?
you sick? Oh, okay.
There's one of those fruit flies flying around here. Yeah. It's the longest minute ever. I call the Norton City Council Committee work session for Monday, October 7th, 2019 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Carrot?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Ms. Whipke is excused.
Mr. Pilat?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here. Public comments. Denise Mullins.
Denise Mullins, 2886 Wilbanks Drive. With a grant from Akron Community Foundation and the generosity of Grace United Church, all Norton High School students are invited to Panther Place on October 10th, 17th, and 24th, those are Thursdays, from 6 to 9 p.m. at Grace United Church. There they can engage in various sports, join a video gaming tournament, make a do-good project which will earn them service credit, try their hand at various board games, or just relax on a sofa while drinking coffee or hot chocolate and listening to music. In addition, special events are scheduled for various dates. Last Thursday, Swenson's had a truck there with free food raffles. This week features a movie night with popcorn and theater candy. October 17th is slated for a karaoke night with donuts. And October 24th, we'll celebrate Harvest Night with a s'mores bar, hot chocolate, and a fire pit. Parents can be confident that their children are safe, as all adult chaperones, which include members of the fire and police department and Norton Library staff, have been vetted with background checks. Please share this information with your students to join us in a safe, inexpensive, and positive environment at Panther Place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mullins,
Mrs. Mullins. Oh,
you may have the same question. Are there age groups involved? I mean, where's the start and end?
As long as they're high school students,
High
on
school.
9th through 12th.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask to make sure that Carrie got a copy of that so she could get it off to the papers. And
Thank you. Under Committee of the Whole, update to noise ordinance, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you, Mr. President. My understanding of this is just an attempt to get the ball rolling for discussion with different personnel in the city to take suggestions on improvements in the noise ordinance to make it a little more specific. Is there anything further you?
No, just as we were receiving noise complaints this year, looking at the ordinance, we all sort of feel like it needs some updates just to provide some specificity and some additional standards just to make sure we know how to enforce it. So I think administration, law, chief of police will take a look at that and make some recommendations back to council on some updates to that noise ordinance in the near future.
So at this point, no actions required. It's just kind of letting everybody know this is.
Right, that's correct.
Thank you. Anything else? So then we will just keep this on our matters referred list, and when you come back to us with something, we'll go ahead and talk about it a little more.
That's fine.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Letter B, ARL TIF, that will fall to me. My understanding is that this is, we are going to put in a TIF for, it's the redevelopment of the Red Pepper property.
Correct.
Basically the same kind of thing we've done with other improvements in the city where we can capture back that tax money from the county, capture that back into the city, and we can use that for our own infrastructure. Anything else, Mr. Fowler?
Just quickly, just to remind you, the schools will be made whole, so there will be no impact to the schools. And our goal is in the near future that we'll have what we call three TIF districts. Not to confuse this, but essentially we'll have a Barber Road TIF district, a Cleveland-Massillon Road TIF district, and an Eastern Road TIF district, so as that we don't have to come with each individual property back to council every time a new development happens.
Okay.
So we're in the process of generating those, and we hope to have those by the end of the year.
Great.
So then all this money will go into one fund, and then those funds will be earmarked for specific infrastructure improvements for those corridors.
Okay. Mr. Pilat?
Other than location, is there a difference between the TIFs, or are there different tax rates, or?
So each TIF will generate money based on the increased value of the property. That is site specific, but it'll be earmarked to the Barber Road TIF fund. For this specific project, it'll be Barber Road TIF funds, which we could use to do stormwater improvements, other projects that might benefit flooding, et cetera, which is why we started that TIF district.
So not particularly talking about this particular piece of legislation, but when you talk about the TIF districts, my guess would be that will be a piece of legislation that will set up that district, and then whenever there is some redevelopment or some improvements in that district, the TIF is automatic.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
And again, we'll keep the schools whole, so we won't bother their property tax. We're only capturing the 40% that would go, and it's only on the increased value.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. Any other questions or discussion regarding this particular TIF that we're talking about here? In that case, I will move to add this to next Monday's, well, it'll actually be next Tuesday's agenda for first reading. Does this need to go so we can do 3 readings?
Yeah. The TIF ordinances only need to be passed by the end of the year.
Okay. All right. So it'll be for a first reading on next Tuesday's agenda. That's because I think Columbus Day is on Monday, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I make that motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Next one is letter C, Dollar General TIF. Same thing for the new property down on Cleveland-Massillon for Dollar General. Again, recapturing that tax money, keeping the schools whole. Is there any discussion? I'll move then to put the Dollar General TIF legislation on next Tuesday's agenda for a first reading.
I'll second.
Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Letter D, purchase from Summit County Land Bank. This is the approval or directing the approval of a contract for the, what is it, A&P? What's the name of the gas station over there? AP?
AP gas station.
All right. Basically, what we're doing is we're approving the purchase of this property once it has been mitigated. The land bank is going to get the property first, mitigate the tanks and everything that needs to be done. They're going to do that through grants. And then once it is cleared and it is clean, then the city has agreed to purchase the property for up to $25,000. and then it will be, I would assume it will be offered for redevelopment, would be my guess.
Yeah, so the land bank, just not to get too far in the weeds, but the land bank has authority to acquire tax delinquent properties in Summit County. This happens to be a tax delinquent property. The issue here is that there's gas, even though the building is down, the structure is down, there's the tanks in the ground still. And so Ohio Department of Natural Resources, recognizing there's a problem with these abandoned gas tanks, has put grant funding in place. The land bank has been working for the last 2 years with the Ohio EPA and the US EPA to make sure that if they acquire these properties and do these mitigations, that they'll be able to get what they call no further action letters, which basically means the property gets a clean bill of health. So they've gone through all that due diligence. They've done one project already in Springfield Township. That was their pilot project, and this is I think their third. We're right in that queue. So that's what's really going on here. It's a neat program and actually clean up, not let the gasoline seep into the groundwater and contaminate, and get it cleaned up and allow it to be redeveloped down the line.
That's kind of nice because this property has been empty for some time, and there's been some concerns for some time about the tanks and whether or not something may be going on there, something may not be going on there.
Environmental
we just
issues
don't know.
is what they're going to try and negate.
Yeah.
The longer it goes, the more likely it
Right.
there is to occur. So.
Any other discussion or questions?
I've got a question.
Mr. Towsley?
Back taxes, are those all taken care of?
Yeah, so part of the land bank's acquisition, when they acquire property, they can put it through the foreclosure process and they wipe the taxes. So when it's transferred at the end of the process, assuming grant funding's acceptable, everything works out the way it's laid out in this agreement, it'd be no back taxes, and it'd just be the purchase price that's in the agreement. So we'd have a clean piece of land without taxes, without tax liens, any liens actually.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes, I just wondered, what does the piece of property only cover where the gas station is, or is the piece between the railroad track included in that?
I'd have to look at the parcels. I don't know the answer to that.
I didn't look it up today. I thought about it today and forgot to look it up. I just wondered because it's the last piece, excuse me, it's the last piece before the railroad tracks, and it's vacant. It's been vacant forever. That piece between it and the railroad, and I just sort of figured they must own that.
Yeah, I'll look. I mean, there's a parcel number on the agreement. We could look at the GIS and figure out what exactly you're acquiring.
Because that would be a lot better purchase. Even $25,000 would be a great price if we got it for that amount of property on that particular street, on that particular highway.
Again, keep in mind it's not to exceed 25.
That's
So
right.
It could
Yeah, I
mean,
understood, yeah.
Right.
So it would be a good area to be developed.
So
Anything else, Mr. Pelot?
the state does not do any testing once, like in this case here, gas station owners went bankrupt, walked away from it. So the state does not continue to do any type of testing on those tanks?
They do testing. They maintain lists, and there's certain, you have to be a Class C, I think Class C determination, which means it's something legal mumbo jumbo, but under ODNR, it's a Class C, which means probably potential for leak. I don't know. I'm not trying to be alarmist. That is eligible for this type of grant funding. And so this site did meet that Class C designation, so it was eligible for grant funding, meaning that the state would offer to help clean it up. So they do test and monitor these abandoned gas not pumps.
sites.
Tanks.
Tanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're saying they kind of already know they're leaking before they even pull?
I don't know if they know if they're leaking.
I
or
heard
not,
they
but-
don't know till they pull them all out.
Yeah,
Really
I
no
think they just look at it's got to be abandoned. It's got to be a
Right.
certain size. We can get you the specifications of what a Class C site means. The land bank has already engaged an environmental consultant who helped put the application together. So they've been working with us again for 2 years.
Good.
It really was waiting for the US EPA and the Ohio EPA to sign off on the structure before they were comfortable from a legal standpoint. They don't want to assume the risk of any contamination,
Right.
Because they're just trying to redevelop and clean the property. They don't want to be held harmless.
Right.
It's kind of nice that at the end of the day, it's it's a clean site and it's been done with grant funding. So Mr. Towsley.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, so when you're saying a clean site, if the city were to purchase it, there's no restrictions for resale beyond that?
That's correct. We'd have people would know that the site had been cleaned, but there'd be a letter from the U.S. Snow Highway PA saying that no one down the line would be held liable, including the city of Norton, is going to be held liable for anything that happened or would have happened because of those gas tanks. So that all gets taken care of in that, and there's no further action letters.
So another business wants to come in and all of a sudden they're stymied because the soil's not right or something?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else?
I would hope we wouldn't want another gas station.
Any further discussion? I will move then. Do we need, can we go 3 readings on it? Okay. I will move then to put the purchase from Summit County Land Bank on the next agenda for first reading.
I will second that, and before we move on, looking up here real quick, the parcel in between there and the railroad track is owned by Ohio Edison.
The whole thing is, yeah.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
And letter E, authorization and certification of tax levies to Summit County. This is something that we do every year. It's just basically certifying what the tax levies that Summit County has calculated for us. Is there any, Mr. Fowler, Mr. Markey, anything else on that?
No, this is the voter and inside millage approved levy rates. Every year, the county budget commission, as part of the budgeting process for the city, requires us, council, to approve those tax rates before they go on to the duplicate to be collected as taxes.
Right.
So this is something we do every year.
Do we have some time for some readings on this, or
I think
does
we
it need to be
get
done?
this
Yeah,
one
they
done.
have to be done.
Okay. All right.
Relatively
Any further
quickly.
discussion regarding this? All right. I will move to place the authorization and certification of tax levies legislation on the next agenda, waiving second and third readings and with emergency language.
I'll second.
Anything else? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Is there anything else to come before committee of the whole?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
I got a call this evening, just as I got here, from Bill Mallory. And he wanted to thank Jason Sams and the detective.
Could be Starling, it could be.
Kevin Starling. He wanted to thank Kevin Starling and Jason specifically, but the whole police department for their prompt recovery of his van that was stolen from the Acme parking lot.
Oh, wow, okay,
That was his van.
okay.
And he said to tell everyone that they did an excellent job. There was hardly any damage at all done to the van. He only had a few dollars in change in the van, and the man stole the few dollars in change and didn't take any of his tools or anything, and they recovered it in Rittman. The van was recovered in Rittman, so he wanted to tell everybody about the police department doing such a good job.
Thank you. Anything else to come before committee of the whole?
I have a question.
Mr. Carent?
The topics that are on the back of our sheet here,
Mhm.
matters referred. In January, we brought up the property maintenance code. And it's not anybody's favorite subject and topic. No one wants to be told what they have to do or what they can't do. But I'm wondering if any progress has been made on that since we discussed having comment from the public. And how was that being solicited, and where does that stand? Because this is something that I think our city really needs to clamp down a little bit more and have a reasonable, responsible approach to. I think it would help Bill Brayman do his job. There's a couple folks here that would like to see things like that enacted, so it would give the city some teeth. But I'd like to know kind of where are we on this? It's October already.
Yeah, I don't know that. I know that we got some sample codes back in March or April, and I
We have
don't.
Wadsworth and Cuyahoga Falls.
Yeah, I remember getting those. I think with everything else that had been going on with other things in the city, I think it kind of took a back burner. But it is something that we certainly need to start looking at again, maybe after the first of the year or whatever. But I think we need to start looking at that and getting some public input from it. I remember trying to go to do things with this before, and this is something that we're going to need some buy-in from the public with this type of a thing. So
As long as something's moving on it, you know, I just feel very strongly that we need to have some sort of viable code out there for the protection of other neighbors
yeah.
and the quality of our city, which also affects tax bases, and it affects a lot of things. But then I understand that, you know, if you're a property owner, you're not necessarily going to want to have the city come tell you what to do. But if you're taking good care of your property, reasonable care of your property, I don't think anyone's going to be offended or affected.
Yeah.
But we need to do something.
Yeah, I think and I agree with you, Dan. I think what we're looking at is trying to come up with something that there's better enforcement for the things that are really egregious. And we've had some difficulty with that, so we do need to take a look at it. So,
Thank you.
Justin, excuse me, Justin, didn't you write something already? We went through it here once. You wrote a sample ordinance, if I remember right, and it was pretty detailed, actually, about the time that it could be, the car would be towed and how long they could hold it, and
well, that was just for junk vehicles.
For junk vehicles.
That was,
that's
That was just one section of
property
I
maintenance.
think, property maintenance. So,
that was never passed, was it?
Junk autos, I think the amendments were passed.
yeah, it passed with amendments to it.
Yeah.
So then,
So the property maintenance, what Mr. Curran's talking about is things like, you know, condition of your home or businesses. I know in the past we've looked more favorably as or councils look more. I haven't done anything. Councils look more favorably on maybe like a business code as opposed to a residential code. So I think there were some decision points we had to figure out what we wanted to do or what council wanted to do before moving forward.
Okay.
So, and I agree. I think it got pushed a little bit back to the back burner, but definitely something we can dust off and start looking at again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else to come before committee of the whole? Any topics for next work session? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
motion
Moved.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
you seen this?